Welcome back to On The Fly. We're previewing the predicting and recapping World Junior Championships, our Men's World Championships, the Women's World Championship, the U18 Men's World Championship. Expect the unexpected.
Absolute abomination of the Canadian Junior Nationals.
I have a couple extra words I want to use in that one. And it's Freebird. Freebird, Freebird, Freebird. Of course, the Olympics are just around the corner. I'm going to coin it the rivalry day.
World Junior history!
Your home for international hockey. This is On The Fly. Hello everyone, welcome back to On The Fly. Today we're previewing the team representing Switzerland at the 2026 Women's Olympic Hockey event happening in Milano Cortina, Italy. So we'll hop in today talking a little bit about the history of this Swiss team at the Olympics. And it's one that's followed pretty similarly to their Women's Worlds and their overall women's program. Sort of a program that hasn't been able to finish the job at these tournaments. And you think to their medals and kind of how they've performed. They have one medal at the Olympics, one medal at the Women's Worlds. The Olympics one came back in 2014. It was a bronze medal, and a bronze medal as well in 2012 at the Women's Worlds. And they've been a team that have been around the medal games. They've played in quite a few of them, but just haven't been able to finish the job. You think back to the last few Olympics, the fourth place finish back in 2018 rather, they did win. They did come fifth place, and then of course 2014, was just talked about, was the bronze medal. And so for this Swiss team this year, it's going to be a bit of a tough road. And you think to the last few years at the Women's World, it's been definitely a different landscape than what we saw going into the 2022 Olympics, where this time around, they've struggled coming into this tournament. They've been a fifth place team at the last two Women's Worlds, came one goal away from being sent to the second group, the Group B. And so for the Swiss this year, as much as it's going to be a tough tournament for them, it's going to be an interesting one as well, and one that I think they could definitely turn the tide in, because the beauty about being in Group A, and this is once again the last year of this staggered Group A, Group B format, the joy of being in the staggered Group A is that you automatically make the quarterfinals, which means realistically you only have to win one game. And you look at who you're going to have to play, it's going to be either Finland, it's going to be the Czechs, most likely, assuming they don't pull off a miracle and upset both Finland and Czechia in the prelims, which doesn't seem all that likely is going to happen. And so for the beauty about the Swiss is they have to win one game. If they can win that one game, they have a guaranteed chance to play for a medal, and from there anything can happen. And so for the Swiss team this year in particular, it's one that, as much as there's not a lot of expectations for them coming in, they are I'd argue, the sixth best team at this tournament, and you could make an argument for the seventh, depending on where you place Germany and Japan. The Swiss still have a chance to play for a medal, and they have to win one game to do so. And so the Swiss this year could be poised for an upset. Always the beauty of these tournaments is that it's never really decided till the final game. But we'll now introduce you to the team. I'll start here with the forwards, with Leonie Bowser, Rahel Ensler, Naomi Herzig, Sinja Lehmann, Lena Marie Lutz, Alina Marti, Alina Mueller, Kaylee Quinek, Noemi Reiner, Vanessa Schaefer, Lara Stalder, Ivana Vey, Laura Zimmerman, then the defensemen with Alicia Backler, Anik Buki, Laura Christian, Laura Morget, Shannon Segrist, Nicole Valerio, Stephanie Vetley, then the goaltenders, Andrea Brandley, Saskia Maurer, and Manya Wagner. And so we look at this team this year, and you look to some key players. We think to the last Women's Worlds tournament where they struggled to score goals, especially against the better teams in Group A. And you look to this tournament, and it's going to be one of those tournaments that they are going to have to score goals. They're going to play a defensive style. They're going to try and keep teams close, and you might be able to succeed against, say, a team like Finland, but if you go up against a team like the Czechs, like Canada, like the US, it's going to become increasingly more difficult to try and create that counterattack rush, especially when you're hounded for as long as you are in your own end. And so for the Swiss this year, there's kind of three key players I'm looking for on the offensive side with the forwards that are going to provide that punch. The first is Rahel Ensler, and so for her, she was arguably the only player that could find the back of the net at the most recent Women's Worlds, and she'll be a big part to this team as well if they want to try and pull off an upset at this tournament, because they are going to need some offensive production. And another player that you kind of look at as far as production goes, and who was held very quiet at last year's Women's Worlds was Alina Mueller. And for her, she's kind of I'd say one of the two most important players with Lara Stalder that is really going to be necessary to be playing at her best if the Swiss want any shot at this tournament to not end up as quarterfinal exits. And so for the Swiss, whether it's Mueller, whether it's Stalder, those two players have to be going at full strength. You need them to be putting on some offensive pressure. They're going to be logging a lot of minutes, very similarly to how the defensemen tend to play a lot more minutes at this tournament. Mueller and Stalder are the players on the offensive side that you're going to see playing upwards of 20 minutes a game. And so we'll see this year in particular whether or not the Swiss are going to be able to get it going early, because if they are, look for those two key players to really be leading the charge. But it also could be a long tournament if they go cold. And so they'll do it for the forwards. Then the defensemen, as far as who to look for, Laura Christian is one that I'd say is an important player. She'll log a lot of minutes for the Swiss team, especially on the shutdown D side. Nicole Valerio as well is another player to kind of keep an eye on at this tournament. Though both those players likely going to be playing that top line role for this Swiss team. Look for them to log a lot of minutes. Shutdown defensive play is very important for the Swiss team this year. Once again, they struggled to score goals at last year's Women's World. You can expect that to continue, which means that you're going to have to play real good defensive hockey for these defense. You're going to be looking for them to play upwards of 20 minutes a night. We'll see if they can pull it off. Then the goaltenders, as far as what to look for, is Andrea Brandley. She's a very important part of this Swiss team and has been almost a staple at these tournaments. And if you're looking for an upset at this tournament, you always need your goaltender to be playing better than what she can play. And Brandley is the kind of goaltender that when the games get important, you see her better side come out. And for the Swiss, they're going to need better than her best if they want any shot at upsetting teams like the Finns, like the Czechs, even Canada and the US, which I don't see happening. But realistically, if you're looking at kind of those upset games, you're looking at the game against the Finns, the Czechs, and you're going to need Brandley to play at her absolute best if you want any shot at upsetting. Saskia Maurer likely going to be the backup to Brandley at this tournament. We saw a little bit of a share at last year's tournament, especially towards the end. We'll see if that's the case again, although I do expect Brandley to control the majority of goaltending minutes at this year's tournament. But we'll now flip over to the schedule, and we'll start here in the prelims on February the 6th. We'll see Switzerland play the Czechs at 8:40 a.m. Eastern Time. They'll play Canada on February the 7th at 3:10 p.m. The U.S. on February the 9th at 2:40, and then Finland on February the 10th at 3:10 p.m. Eastern Time. Then they'll go into the quarterfinals. A reminder that all teams in Group A do make the quarterfinals. The quarterfinal seeds is A1 versus B3, A2 versus B2, A3 versus B1, and A4 and A5 will play each other. All teams are reseeded into the semifinals, which will be on February the 16th. From there, most likely, you won't see the Swiss in the gold medal game, but if they are, it's at 1:10 p.m. Eastern on February the 19th. The bronze medal game also on February the 19th at 8:40 a.m. Eastern Time. And so, as far as the important games go for this Swiss team, there's really two of them. First tournament or first game of the tournament for them against the Czechs. A very important game and one that it will set the tone for the rest of this tournament. They won't be able to contend against Canada. They'll get smoked by the U.S. And their other game that's important is against the Finns on the 10th. Realistically, there's only two games that the Swiss are going to be able to be competitive in, and it's those two games. I'd say the most important game of the prelims is against the Finns because it's going to more or less set up the eventual quarterfinal matchup between these two teams. You can expect the Czechs to kind of take it to the next level this year. I expect them to be beating the Finns fairly handedly, but at the same time, the Finns have showed to be a problem for the Czech team in recent years, and so we'll see if that continues into this year's Olympic tournament. And as far as quarterfinal matchups go, likely against the Finns, we just kind of talked about as well. The Czechs could be in there depending on how that game goes. Semifinal matchups, if the Swiss do pull off the upset in the quarters, will be most likely against either Canada or the US. Once again, penciled in losses, don't expect too much out of that. And then the bronze medal game, likely going to be either the Finns or the Czechs, assuming they can make it that far. Gold medal game will be against, if they make it, and somehow there's a miracle in there, between Canada or the US. And so for the Swiss team, you know, as much as the schedule is going to be it's going to be a tough tournament. There's no getting around that. But I do think that there is a potential for an upset, especially against the Finns, where they are able to be a little bit more competitive, where if they're playing the Czechs, it's going to be a bit of a more dominant game. But especially against the Finns, there is a chance, and especially if they end up playing them in the quarterfinals, they might be able to make a push for their second medal. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really consider subscribing, tell all your friends, comment down below your thoughts on Team Switzerland. Until next time,